If your soil feels dry, crusted, or strangely silent, there's a good chance you're missing one of the most critical workers in your garden, the earthworm. These unsung heroes may not get the glory of compost bins or lush green leaves, but they're the backbone of healthy soil. And here's the truth. If you can't find earthworms in your garden beds, it's not just an observation, it's a red flag. Knowing how to search for earthworms and understanding what their presence or absence means can tell you more about your soil's true condition than any test kit ever could. Let's walk through how to properly find earthworms, where to look, what affects their movement, and how to turn a wormless bed into an underground city of life. It only takes a few minutes to learn, but once you do, it could completely change how you see and treat your garden soil. Start with the basics, when and where to look for worms. Most gardeners assume worms are everywhere, but that's not always the case. Earthworms follow moisture. If your soil is too dry, frozen, or hot, they burrow deep, or disappear entirely. So, early morning after a good rain is honestly prime worm watching time. Worms rise to the upper layers when the ground is cool and moist. But hey, even on dry days there are still ways to find them. Head over to a shady patch of garden or maybe beneath some old mulch or cardboard. Use a small hand fork or a trowel and dig down about 6 inches. You're not just looking for adult worms here, you're also keeping an eye out for tiny juveniles, worm eggs, which are called cocoons, or even small tunnels filled with sticky castings. If you spot any of these, it means your soil is biologically active. And if you don't, well, just keep listening. Mulch zones are like earthworm shelters hiding in plain sight. One of the fastest tricks to locate earthworms is to check under decomposing mulch. Things like straw, shredded leaves, or cardboard laid on the soil become a favorite hiding spot for worms. Not only does this keep the ground cool and moist, but it also provides a steady food supply as the organic matter breaks down. Worms don't just tolerate mulch, they actually depend on it. So, go ahead and lift back any thick, wet layers of mulch or rotting plant debris, and take a look at the soil underneath. You might notice worms scatter quickly, especially if they sense vibrations or light. Compost piles and worm hotspots, yeah, these are really something. Another goldmine for earthworm discovery is right at the edges of your compost pile or worm feeding station, and, while not every garden has a traditional compost bin, even a simple mound of decomposing weeds or kitchen scraps buried in a corner can turn into a real worm magnet. Earthworms are naturally drawn to areas rich in half-rotted material. They don't go for fresh scraps, they actually prefer what bacteria and fungi have already started breaking down. Now go ahead and dig into the edge of your compost pile, right where it meets the soil. If worms are present, they'll be clustered right at that spot where the compost meets the ground. So what if you don't find any worms? No worms doesn't always mean disaster, but it does mean action is needed. Their absence usually points to one or more of these culprits: dry, compacted, acidic, or low-carbon soil. Tilled ground especially suffers because, well, it destroys worm tunnels and microbial life. To reverse this, begin with moisture. Earthworms will not colonize dry beds. Water deeply, then lay down organic matter, like chopped green weeds, alfalfa pellets, grass clippings, or leaf mold, covered with cardboard or straw. If you can, add a handful of native forest soil or soil from an untouched patch of land. This introduces fungal life and microworm cocoons, jump-starting a slow but steady recovery. Use the wet cardboard test. Worms will tell you everything. Here's a simple but powerful method to test for worm activity. Soak a piece of cardboard in water and lay it flat on the ground. Weigh it down with a rock or piece of wood to keep it from drying out. Leave it for 5 to 7 days, then just lift it. If conditions are right, you'll see worms hiding underneath or even nibbling at the moist fibers. So, turn your soil into a worm-welcome mat. Once you know what attracts them, moisture, darkness, food, and quiet, you can begin building beds that invite earthworms to stay. Try to avoid digging unless it's absolutely necessary. Instead, layer materials over time. Soft green waste, wet shredded paper, aged manure, and especially fungal-rich leaf mold or forest soil. Let the decomposition happen slowly. Worms will move in naturally. And remember, earthworms don't just survive in good soil, they create it. Final thoughts. Why worm hunting matters more than you think. Finding or not finding earthworms is more than just a curiosity, it's a biological report card. It tells you whether your soil is alive or lifeless. So next time you step into your garden, don't just look at your plants. Look at your soil, dig a little, watch what moves, because if the worms aren't happy, your garden won't be for long either. If you found this guide helpful, give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe so you don't miss future soil health secrets. And share this with any gardener still wondering why their soil feels dead. Sometimes the answer is just below the surface.